Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. And we're going to be discussing the top reasons why the second year of grief can be the worst. Joining us is the star of our show. His name is Doug Lawrence. He's joining us from Canada. Let's bring him out and hear what he's been up to. Hello, Doug. How are you?
Hello. How are you as well?
I'm doing very well. Thank you. And before we get into our topic, I'd love for you to share a little bit with our audience. You're the founder of TalentC. What is TalentC?
That's a long story. First off, welcome to all our listeners and viewers all around the globe. Thank you for taking time to join us today. And we know that you're going to take some interesting tidbits home with you as a result of your spending some time with us today as we go through that. So TalentC, that's an interesting story. TalentC actually started out as Talent Shore. And when I went to register the company, TalentC was the name that we ended up. Actually, it was a young lady that I was, my wife Deborah and I used to go for pedicures together. And this one young lady had taken particular interest in the work that I was doing and wanting to sort of be able to, contribute her thoughts whenever she could. And so as a result of that, she said, well, why are you fretting and stewing? The best approach you can take is, Talent Shore, it's gone, so you can't use that. What about TalentC? And she said, you look at it from the aspect of the name itself is, back then we were interested in talent and how we could go about evolving talent through mentoring. And then the letter C on the end was supposed to be symbolic of a large body of water where you could look out across from shore to shore to shore. And from there you could find people that, number one, from my perspective, that I could work with, but more importantly, that if you were an organization that was looking at wanting to hire somebody, you had this wide C to C to C talent pool that you could choose from. So that was a long answer to a short question.
That's okay. It's that's what we're here for, to provide information. And you're also an international certified competent mentor. How does this role tie in with grief counseling or any type of work you do with your clients?
So I actually have two certifications. I'm a certified practitioner mentoring and a certified practitioner journey mentor. And the journey mentor part of it encompasses two roles. The first is a journey mentor will help guide you through the certification process that's offered by the international mentoring community. So they'll help guide you through to make sure that you don't stumble and fall along the way. But the other part, and the part that is it is tied to what we're talking about today, and that is the aspect of the journey mentor is the bridge, or the bridge is probably the best way for me to describe it. It's the bridge or the missing part of the support structure that people need to have in place organizationally or even on an individual basis that they need to have in place as part of the support structure for mental health. Because what I've found in going through and doing quite a bit of preliminary research was that there is a gap, and mentoring and using the journey mentor approach, it's going to help us close that gap sufficient enough that we can help people who are going on their healing journey and trying to heal from mental health issues that they've been dealing with.
That's very helpful. Thank you, Doug. And for people who don't know, as you mentioned, you do work with people and help them to share their feelings, their thoughts. You've been sharing your feelings and your thoughts during your grief. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's so important for you to do that here in this forum?
Well, what I've found for me in particular is that being able to share my story and being able to share what has and hasn't worked for me has become very therapeutic. And I've found that after we're done our conversation today, I go away feeling, certainly a lot better. I feel enriched and refortified, and I want to be able to take and share that with everyone else so that they too can, experience that, but more importantly, that they can use that as part of their support structure in dealing with their mental health issues or challenges. And grief, let's not forget that grief is definitely plugged into the whole mental health piece. And, one of the things I've said before has been that, grief is it's all over the place. Everything that we do has got some component or, something that's attached to it that is grief related. Even the aspect of losing a body part, for example. Somebody goes for surgery and has an amputation that takes place. You're going to go through the grief process with that. You're going to go through grief when you have a change in jobs, and sometimes the change in job can be something that is precipitated by you, or it could be that you and the organization have decided to part ways. So there's going to be grief with that as well that you have to deal with.
Thank you, Doug. Again, it just means so much to me and to others that you are so selfless and just so kind-hearted, and being here means a lot. So let's get into our topic about the top reasons why the second year of grief can be the worst. Many people would think you have that sudden loss, or maybe you knew the loss was coming, and okay, you take the first year, you air quotes, get over it. And then by the second year, you should be air quotes, good as new and back in circulation and meeting with people. But that's not the case, is it?
No, it definitely isn't. And I was fortunate that I came across, while I was doing my preliminary research, I had some personal questions myself that I needed to find answers to. And what I came across was this article that was written by a lady by the name of Elizabeth Postle, Postle, who is a registered nurse. And she's gone and pulled a whole bunch of material together that talks about, some reasons why the second year is of grief can be the worst. And we're going to just take a snapshot of that. But what I'm going to do for our listening and viewing audience is I'm going to share where I am today as it relates to the second year of grief. So I'm in my third year now, hard to believe, but it's been 2 years this past February that Deborah passed. And to be honest, I don't see a lot of difference between what we would call year 2 and what I call year 3. I don't see much difference, because what's happened is that for me, my life has changed, and it's changed, for the most part for forever. never going to go back to the way it was. It is what it is, so to speak, where I am today. And for me, it's been a bit of a kick in the seat of the pants to be able to say, all right, you need to start to think about, how are you going to deal with this? What are the coping mechanisms? What are some of the things you're going to put into practice that's going to help you in dealing with this massive change in your life that has been taking place and is going to definitely be taking place even more so. And for me, it's a reality check. Is what it does for me is I'm normal. I'm like everybody else that's going through this, albeit we all grieve in our own special way. But the reality is that we're all, those of us that are in the grieving process, we're all going through something that is sending us a message that our life as we know it is changing and is going to continue to change for a number of, for probably a number of years. And it's not easy.
Doug, do you think it's possible to replace, if that's a word, replace those feelings of grief with feelings of love for someone else, something else?
I would hope so. And it's interesting because, and I know on other shows we've talked about different approaches and stuff. And for me, one of the ones was for me to get to closure. I would visit a medium or a psychic, and the last visit that I had, it was made relatively clear to me that finding someone else was in my destiny, sort of part of the what's in store for me down the road. So, and I guess each and every one of us we have to wrestle with the fact that, am I okay with, being by myself? Or do I feel as though I could make my life better by having, a partner, somebody new that I can, spend some time with and that way. And I know what the medium said, and I'm respectful of that, but I still at the same time don't want to be trying to tailor my life to what the medium had said. I want that to unfold and happen as it shall, and just be open and receptive to, what some of the outcomes could potentially be as a result of that. Do I think that we all need to rush out tomorrow and find somebody that we can be with for the rest of our lives? I'm going to have to, sort of hint or indicate that, that's something that each one of us has to make that decision on our own. And it can't be something that somebody's making for you, and the thing that I would caution is that what you've experienced. So for me, as an example with Deborah and the relationship we had, I don't think that can be replicated. I'm certainly, I'm open to, to try, but I know I'm going in with kind of a bias, but I just don't think that it can be replicated.
I appreciate that. So maybe it doesn't have to be replicated. Maybe it could just be something new. Maybe it could be something that is different than anything you've had before and could still bring you joy. Who knows? You have to put yourself out there when you're ready.
That's true. And I mean, it could be where, it becomes, you find yourself with a good friend that you have, you go to movies, you go out for coffees, you spend quality time together. and that could be it. That could be how it ends up being defined. So yeah, I could agree. Yeah, I agree with that.
Fantastic. So tell us a little bit about some of the research that you've done when we think about the second year of grief, the third year of grief, so on and so forth. What are some of the reasons why the feelings continue and maybe even turn to something where you need to seek professional help and people are seeking you out, for example?
You know, there's a whole number of different variables that come into play with this, and we can touch on a few of them. So, and by what I want to be able to do with this is for those of us, and it doesn't have to be just people who are in year 2 or in year 3. You know, you can certainly be further down the line. I remember I taught when I was doing some of the preliminary research, I ended up talking to a guy that had lost one of his children. And it was 12 or 13 years now and he said, I'm still grieving. And he said, there isn't a day goes by that I don't experience some form or some sort of grief as a result of that. Because he said, you know, how do you not do that? How do you not still grieve, still have feelings, all of those sorts of things? How can you do that? And, they pass away today, tomorrow you turn the switch off and say, okay, we're done now, let's move on. It doesn't work that way. Some of the things that, that I saw in the preliminary research I did that I've also, certainly experienced in my own life and draw on that for our conversation today is the aspect of, there's a perception, I'll call it that, but from my perspective, there is what I would have to say is less support from family and friends. And a large part of that comes from the aspect that a lot of people, they're fixated on a period of time, a duration of time that they feel that you should be over it. It's kind of like suck it up, buttercup, and just kind of move on. And it's doesn't work that way because it's that, I was actually thinking that I was thinking of the relationship Deborah and I had, and she was the social butterfly. She was the one that could engage with people, make friendships, and the next thing I know, we're going out for dinner or we're going someplace with somebody for drinks and stuff like that. Versus where I was more the homebody that it required effort to go out in that, and so. For me, what that did was that created that circle of family and friends, but they've now gotten to a place themselves where they feel that, I should be past that. I should be, milestone 15 on the highway. I should be past 15 and should be at milestone 20 now. And they don't understand that, there's each one of us deals with that in a different sort of way. And we can't just say, okay, we're done here and move on, because it's probably going to take some time. And we just have to be able to, we have to realize that grief never ends, and it's with you for life. And that there's a whole bundle of emotions, up and down emotions that we have to be able to wrestle with. And I was at my daughter's place on the weekend for Easter dinner, and my grandson, who is 5 or 6, I can never remember the ages anymore. 6, I think. We'll go with 6. And he said, I miss grandma. And for me, that was tough. That was to hear that somebody of those tender years actually, still thinks of his grandmother and obviously, misses her. And I know I had talked with my daughter actually yesterday, and she said that he talks about grandma quite often. And, but that's all tied to those up and down, that kettle of mixed emotions that, we need to figure out how we're going to cope with and be able to, to be able to move forward with those.
Yes, and I'm sure that the emotions had to be mixed because it's painful, and at the same time, how beautiful to keep her
Yeah.
memory alive. What did you say? What was your response?
Well, actually, I can't remember who it was. I think um, it was either my daughter or um, her husband's parents that had said, "We all miss grandma, and it's good that you've got a place for her in your heart, but we all miss her." And so, that was sort of validating or reinforcing for him that, oh, it's okay to feel this way. And and he was able to, resume his playing with toys and stuff like that. But it was it was something that I hadn't expected, but certainly the conversation that day, and then the one that I had with my daughter yesterday, just kind of, I'm not in this alone, and it was kind of nice to it, it it was reassurance. It was actually a coping mechanism for me, that because I could mull that over and sort of think about, gosh, when I was young, I can remember my grandmother and my grandfather, both passing away, and how, back then, even at that early age, how that was hard for me to deal with and cope with. And fast forward here, now I've lost my partner for life to, to cancer. And it's something that I have to learn to cope with, and something I have to learn to deal with. And so, yeah, it was, it was, it was heartwarming for me to have my grandson say what he did.
Thank you, Doug. And when you left and went home and you thought back about that get together, and as you're thinking about it now, does it bring you any sense of peace, or is it more painful?
It's both, because I find that it's another source of grief that is coming in. And so I'm having to deal with that. But at the same time, I'm also happy that, here's a youngster that still thinks of his grandmother, who is, passed away 2 years ago. And he's still in a place where, he's recognizing that she's not there, and, he misses her. And so for me, that was truly, that was therapeutic by itself.
Actually, it's very telling as well that at 4 years of age,
Yeah.
right? It would have been four. It's amazing. And it actually warms my heart to think that children can really identify with various members of the family. And I feel like even in my generation, or subsequent generations, that grandparents were not always revered, maybe the way they are in some families, and in some cultures, in some countries.
Well, I agree, because I think of my grandparents, on my mom's side, my grandpa passed away, and I remember grandma coming to get us at school, coming to get me at school, and um, had to break the news to me, and then took me to, because that would be about a 20-mile drive to where the family was starting to gather at my grandfather's house and stuff like that. And like, I had no idea. I had no idea what to do or what to expect or anything like that. it was difficult because you at that age too, you didn't really know, excuse me, you didn't really know how you were supposed to behave.
Yeah, it's really true. Nobody tells you. I remember when I lost my grandmother, and it just kind of seems surreal. You just can't, where is she going and what happened and why is she leaving now? A lot of questions that were unanswered then. So for people who are watching and they're wondering, I don't want to go through all this pain. I I just want to skip that part.
Yeah.
Is there any kind of resolution that you can cut the time in half?
No. It's one of those things that it will evolve as it will evolve, is probably my best answer to that. Like my mom passed away in 2007, and I'm still grieving. And, I'm maybe not to the extent that I am with Deborah right now, but certainly, 2007, that's a while ago. And, she was my best friend. She was somebody I could always count on. She always, we lived on a farm, and I can still remember her driving the tractor and pulling, we called it the slip. And so we used to stack bales on this thing as the tractor was moving forward and picking up the hay or the straw. And then when it got full, it was, I think, 15 bales of straw. You had to take this crowbar, shove it in the ground, and help slide the bales off. And Mom every so often would decide to pop the clutch on the tractor and dump me into the field, and then be so apologetic about wanting to make sure I'm okay in that. But more importantly was, okay, you need to hang on this time so what I would try different mechanisms so that so she didn't feel like, she was dumping me or something like that. So, but, it's things like that, those memories and stuff, and the grief that goes along with, I don't get to do any of that anymore. It's those memories that tell us that this is going to go on, 2007 to now, as an example, it's going to, go on for a lot longer than 2 or 3 years.
So here's a question I have for you, Doug. We know that there are many different types of scenarios where we can grieve the loss of someone. When it comes to having an intimate relationship, a life partner, a spouse, that is something that we could say, okay, I don't want to feel this pain again. I'm signing up for no more relationships. I'm not going to get married again. I'm not going to have a girlfriend again. I'm not going to have a boyfriend again. Is that something that we should consider? Because then there's no more pain that's going to come from that loss of a relationship.
I have some friends that have adopted that very same sort of thing, that they, there's a reluctance to get involved with, somebody on a fairly intimate basis, because just don't want to go through that again, where they end up losing that person, or they get sick, and then they feel guilty that they should be looking after that person, and just don't want to go there. And I respect that. I think that if that's the way that you feel, then so be it. Like, and I think back to, my father and my father-in-law, both who, certainly with my father, he found somebody that, was somebody that could fill the need that he had. And it was more about, with him, it was more about wanting to find somebody that could take care of him. And he was fortunate in that the wonderful lady that he found was also looking for somebody that she could take care of. So it was kind of a win-win for, for everybody in that particular case. So I just, I think that each one of us, needs to be able to make that decision on our own, that if we feel that, and I don't mean to categorize people by, I'll use my father, certainly, where, he was 80 plus years of age and, into a serious relationship, which I think I think he got 9 more years of pleasure in having someone that, he was partnered with. So 9 more years of being able to experience that, where I've seen other people where, they have gotten into a relationship fairly quickly after their significant other had passed away. And it ended fairly quickly. And it was a double dose of pain and suffering and grief that they now had to deal with. And you have to ask yourself, am I ready for that or not?
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm standing here in my studio, and I just happened to see this picture of my dogs. If you can see them, I had three
Yeah.
dogs, and they all passed away. And I just said, "That's the end. No more dogs." Some people will go out and get a dog right away. It's like the next day they're out searching because they don't want to live with that emptiness of not having someone there or something there.
And that's a good point, because I have neighbors here on the street that I'm living on who, that's one of the things they did, was they went and got a dog to look after, to go for walks with, and all that sort of stuff. Because I can remember sitting outside on my porch, and they'd be walking by, and they'd go, you should get one of these, get you out of the house and stuff like that. But we had a dog when, gosh, back in the 1980s, I guess it was. We had a purebred German Shepherd, and that dog meant the world to me. Everybody sort of said he was my dog, because he would, he'd look up into my eyes with his eyes, and he would, he was very well trained, and I had him trained to hand signals and stuff like that. To be honest, I don't want to go through that again. And the other part is that some days I enjoy not having anyone to look after or to care for. And then I have other days where I wish that, I had, whether it be a dog or, a human being. I just, I have those changes. That's the up and down emotion, right? That we talked about earlier, is my roller coaster of emotions. Some days supports, having a dog, and other days it doesn't seem to want to work for me.
And let's be honest, Doug, having a dog will get you out of the house. Do you really want to go out of the house when it's snowing, raining, have to go multiple times, pick up the dog waste? I mean, there are other things that we can do with our time as opposed to getting a dog. But I can understand why some people want that unconditional love all the time. And I also think, as someone who's been alone for a long time, you can find your own unconditional love. And there's something to be said about that as well. So I think for people watching or listening, when you spend time by yourself, you really do get to know yourself and know what it is that you care for, what's important to you, what is your intuition, and also what is your passion? And are you living a life filled with passion, or are you just existing?
Well, and the other part that goes along with that is the aspect of, now that you are a single person, from an identity, place of identity, are you okay with, being that single person again? Are you okay with, all the new things that are going to start to happen to you, that are going to change how you identify with yourself, even if you haven't got to that stage yet? So, because I look at society, and we've talked about this before, but society is designed for couples. And, when you end up going to social outings and all sorts of things, most people, when you look around and scan or pan the room, most of the time, all you see is couples, and people are interacting and doing all sorts of things that way. And off in the corner is me, so to speak. And, I'm trying to find somebody that I can kind of, hook up with at that social gathering. I'm trying to find somebody that I can kind of sashay over to and start to have a conversation, or they in turn come to me just out of interest. And I actually had that on the weekend, where this absolutely wonderful person on two different occasions came and sat down and started to talk. And for me, that was a huge release. So we talk about our emotions up and down like a roller coaster. That was a huge release of emotion for me, because somebody actually cares enough to want to come and sit and have a conversation with you when they see you kind of sitting there and not engaging very much with other people. And, you ask yourself, whose responsibility is it in those situations? And I'm going to suggest that it's both. That, you and the other people, need to be able to reach out and sort of open the door for those conversations to take place. And I know it's difficult when you're somebody who hasn't experienced grief, and you're trying to have that conversation or connection with somebody who is still in year 3, so to speak, that, how do I talk to that person? And I'm really nervous and really apprehensive about what should I say? What happens if I say something that's not right and all that? And, I would rather have you come forward and sort of say, gee, I don't know what to say. Can you help me, guide me so we can have a conversation? And to be able to do that, I think, is certainly, more of us need to go there.
Doug, as always, such great insights and coming from your heart. Tell people how they can work with you, and who would you like to contact you, because you are open to bringing on some new clients, and you have a certain model that's different than many people have. So tell us about that.
So, yeah, for me, if you want to reach out and start a preliminary conversation, and I do that sort of stuff at no cost. And so we'll get that on the table right away. But is the aspect, I think, if you feel that you need to just even have a conversation, you can reach out through my website at www.talentc.ca, and it's on the banner at the bottom of your screen. So talentc.ca, so the word talent, small letter C.ca. And just go to the button, the contact page, and reach out to me that way. You can also check out, some of the things that I've got going on in LinkedIn as well. I sometimes forget to mention that. And then you could just direct message me through LinkedIn as well. But it's just as easy for you to send me an email. So Doug.Lawrence, LAWRENCE, at talentc.ca. And once again, that's in the banner on the bottom of your screen. And we can have a preliminary conversation about, what are some of the things that you're dealing with and how I might be of service to you. And like I said, the initial conversations and stuff like that, let's take the money off the table and let's just have that dialogue and see where we end up going. And I know that if you reach out to me, that we can certainly begin a healing journey for sure. And it'll be one that'll be very therapeutic. And I look forward to that opportunity.
Thank you so much, Doug. And what we want to leave you with today is you are not alone. Please go and pick up a copy of Doug's book over on Amazon. That is the title, You Are Not Alone. And guess what? You're not alone because we're coming right back with our next show, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. So stay wherever you are. We'll be back in just under 20 minutes. Doug, thank you so much for being here as always. And I look forward to seeing you in just a few minutes. Bye, everyone.